Mages, mystics, magic. All that would be considered fantasy lies in the hands of a secret society of magi, who lies in the shadows of ordinary civilization. It's a role taken with pride, yet one that must be kept classified. If any commoner were to learn such secrets, no doubt there will be consequences to bear. A fateful encounter, strings of fate twisting and tying together, upon catching a glimpse of a witch on a holy night. Mahotsukai no Yoru, or Witch on the Holy Night, was supposed to be the debut work by writer Kinoko Nasu in 1996. Taking novel form would set the infrastructure for many stories within his mental landscape. However, due to publication disputes, was forced to scrap the idea. The foundation for his future work wouldn't be seen for many years. But after forming Type Moon in 1999, in the year of 2012, his novel, revised, edited, and reformatted, would release as a visual novel. And 10 years later, in December of 2022, has had a resurgence via an HD re-release, with this being the first time Witch on the Holy Night can be read entirely in English. So, let's take a dive into this once elusive work and see just what we've been missing out on for the past 10 years. Set in late 1980s winter, the town of Misaki is home to Aoko Awazaki and Alice Kuonji. Aoko, the heir to the Awazaki family, is a confident, brazen, and diligent girl who meanders on the line of her normal human life and her life as a magus that was thrust upon her. She is apprenticed to Alice, a full-fledged mage, who, quiet and aloof, resides in her mountainside manor with Aoko, while graceful and sophisticated, puts the mage's code before all else. At first unrelated to the two, Shizuki Soljiro is a transfer student. Having grown up in the mountains, is ignorant of all things in modern society. With an honest, kind-hearted personality and often clueless visage, fits in with his peers as he slowly becomes accustomed to city life. However, on a night like any other, a simple wrong place at the wrong time would complicate their set of affairs as he becomes aware of the mage's secrets. And so, through mere coincidence, the fate of all three have been intertwined. What follows is the life of these newly acquainted characters learning to live and adapt to their new set of circumstances. Though this brings about many hardships, confusion, strife, and whatnot, what buds from it all is something truly beautiful. Taking a third-person perspective, the focal point jumps to and from our three main leads. By taking a look at their daily life, we see the life they lead, how they conduct themselves, and how they feel inside at any given moment. For the most part, it is a simple story, but with nearly flawless execution. The prose finds the perfect balance of inner monologue, dialogue, and descriptions, creating a rhythmic flow. With constant changes in camera angles, animations, and numerous character sprites, the dynamic visuals further play towards an unbreaking pace. Pair that with the melodic track in the background, and before you know it, you are enveloped in a cozy, warm atmosphere, easing the mind as you are cordially enticed to prompt the next string of text. This slice of life makes up a good majority of the experience, as, unlike other Kinoko Nasu works, where equal attention is given to both the characters and their circumstances, Witch on the Holy Night is predominantly a character-driven narrative. The plot is left on the back burner for a gradual, subtle build-up, only hinted at here and there. Barring a couple chapters in the beginning and until the final few, an agenda is hardly pushed. Whatever is going on in the background can be momentarily forgotten to bask in the environment of its superbly written cast. This is MaHoYo's charm. So easily is it to be enchanted by the charisma emanating from not only the protagonists, but also the plethora of those in the supporting roles. No matter if they are witches, or just normal people, the same writing prowess is used to anchor yourself to them. Slow and steady, ample perspective and time is given generously, using their alone time to immerse yourself into their mindset, to show who they really are. Then to see the cast come together, sustaining or forming relationships adds a homey feeling of connectivity. Soon enough, you begin to feel the chemistry reminiscent of a tight-knit group hanging out, living to the fullest. Through this slice of life, you come to appreciate the ordinary, banal conversations, where just a simple dialogue between two people about a superfluous topic can hold enough substance to further understand the participant's character in depth. Through symbolism, foreshadowing, or just a straightforward talk, even the most seemingly insignificant of interactions can carry so much weight. And as this back and forth continues, their multifaceted emotions, personalities, and the like come out naturally, bringing out their true character, flaws and all. Take Tobimaru Tsukiji for example, a friend and classmate of Shizuki and Awazaki. He's a self-proclaimed misanthrope who holds a snobby air to the point of being monikered Your Majesty. Though most of his type would be looked down upon, you see his down-to-earth personality as he takes Sojiro under his wing. Then, upon realizing where his attitude and philosophy derives from, it makes it hard to dislike the guy. Sure, the outward appearance of his style and words may give the impression of a strict, domineering kid riding the waves of his family's success, but when seen for who he is a guy with a good heart that has closed itself off to most. The same could be said for Aoko's at times sour mood and unreasonable ambitions, while holding the courage and diligence to accomplish tasks that seem impossible. Sojiro may be clueless and easily influenced, but shows he has the willingness to learn and adapt. Everybody has their shortcomings, but also positives to counterbalance them. After all, they're human. There's a nuance to each ingredient, culminating in a richly complex flavor that forms the full person. Although varied in what weaknesses manifest, there remains a constant, a flaw present in every human that exists to varying degrees. As a society, it's safe to say we thrive off of understanding. We are reliant on our need to comprehend the words another speaks. At least the surface level meaning. The meaning of words is held within the person, not within the words themselves. That's why when it comes to looking beyond the social veneer, the emotions that formed those words are a different question entirely. A prevalent theme is the idea of how no one truly understands the emotions, reactions, and overall weight behind the words of any one person. How instead of complete comprehension of the other, you are only left with your own interpretation. Words of malice may translate to an ordinary quip. An obvious question born from curiosity may come off as mocking. Like no other, the dynamic of Aoko, Sojiro, and Alice, all with directly opposing personalities and life philosophies, is the paragon of this concept. Aoko still meanders between her mage and ordinary human life. Not quite being able to let go of the latter leads to inopportune choices unbefitting of the former. However, her hard-working nature will fix any discrepancy, as it is her desire to live for a regretless future. While Soljuro lacks the concept of future, as living a life where the only relation to time was the present, he wanders a path of uncertainty with no foreseen destination. Then there is Alice, the one who embodies the ideal mage in mindset and ability, an existence kept in tradition, stubborn to change. Their diverse upbringings conjure equally diverse perspectives of the world and its inhabitants. It's a triangular diagram sporting clashing viewpoints that creates a really interesting chemistry, constantly explored through various outlets of interaction. Their individual lives are worlds apart, almost as if their thought processes were of different species. And given no one quite says exactly how they feel, it often leads to big misunderstandings between each other. It's a factor for comedy, sure, but also plays to this idea for tension. Upon first glance, it might look like a relationship strung together by friendly rivalry, but is more like they are bound by a thin string that could snap at any moment. Sometimes a misspoken word can be asphyxiating, as one more could set the predator for the prey's throat. But despite this looking like a relationship that only breeds conflict, some elements between them form bonds that allow coexistence. Though the mindset of mage and civilian vary greatly, their core remains the same. It's the journey of finding those bonds, wearing down the barriers of bias and preconceptions, and maybe not to see completely eye to eye, but get close to an understanding, so at the very least, they can accept one another. Every person is a mystery, leaving behind pieces, however small, for another to put together the puzzle that is them. A puzzle so elusive, not even the person in question fully understands. It's a profound moral that pushes the reader to think just a bit deeper about a character's actions or thoughts, really showing just how complex and fickle human emotions can be. On top of a meaningful message, it also uses this concept splendidly for humor. Adding upon the comforting atmosphere is one of this story's strongest assets, its comedy. Masterful in its presentation and setup, carries out well-structured jokes whose effects are amplified by precise animations and character sprites. Of course, many of these sprout from the aforementioned misunderstandings, but changes up the execution to make it refreshing time and time again. Whenever two characters are on screen, in spite of their personality, always bring out a fair share of hilarity with their own unique essence. The cast's personalities are flexible and varied to where even the cold-faced Alice can have a cute but funny side. This also seamlessly translates into the more heavy, tense moments as well. Witch on the Holy Night is one of the few stories where comic relief doesn't detract from the seriousness, but weirdly coexist with both ends at full strength. It's a comedic blend that fully utilizes each ingredient to stir constant laughs throughout a good majority of the narrative. There's also a section of side stories titled The Wonderful World of Ploys, which intermingles world building and humor into small entertaining skits, mostly revolving around Alice's magecraft. Though all of the world building within Mahoyo isn't as creative as this, Nasu's improvement in the area of exposition has improved immensely. Information is given in succinct, easily digestible tidbits to understand only the fundamentals of magecraft and the mystery side of the world, intentionally being left open either so it can be shown later on or to be built upon in other stories of this shared universe. From the characters, their development, the world and its many mysteries, it all must lead somewhere. And that is when the aforementioned gradual build reaches its peak. Once the stakes are set, and the pieces have stepped onto the board, What you will find are some of the most adrenaline-pumping action sequences executed in a tasteful manner. Utilization of concepts only mentioned briefly. The participant's journey up to this moment. All comes together as the presentation kicks up with dynamic animation and a euphonious soundtrack to match the high-intensity writing. Mixed with all-around stunning artwork, what is shown is a breathtaking cinematic-like experience. However, it's not just the visual spectacle that makes these scenes a joy to watch, as substance is of equal relevance. Deep thought is given to counteracting or combining different magecraft techniques to gain the upper hand, as the quick wit and ability of 2 or more well-trained mages are put on display. It allows viewers new to this universe to get accustomed to magecraft's rules, even if they are not clear-cut at first. Meanwhile, fans a bit more familiar will be having a field day with all sorts of techniques, old and new, being used to their fullest. It makes sense given which on the Holy Night was supposed to establish the building blocks of this world, allowing readers of both categories to just sit back and enjoy. Though fascinating the glamoring clashes can be, the focus doesn't stray from what's important. The characters, who they are, what this fight means to them, and what they hope to achieve does not exit the stage. After all, this outcome was not because the plot called for it, but due to the characters' relations between one another. It's a character drama through and through. That's why the most emotional moments aren't always the awaited battle itself, but the aftermath. Transient and serene. Once the storm settles, so have their differences. These fights are like their own stories, revealing feelings that can't quite be translated into words. All because there was a fundamental error in understanding. In the end, this isn't just a story about flashy magic or this urban fantasy setting, but about people, as important as it is, which on the Holy Knight's heart reflects not that of the supernatural, but the natural, humanity, the joys of everyday life along with the complications that come with it. That's the beauty within this story. Those who couldn't be more different, the strange and the normal can intermix. One day, with one interaction at a time, we can get closer to a mutual understanding with words and actions. At its core follows deeply flawed, deeply human individuals drifting along this confusing sea of humanity. And that is Mahotsukai no Yoru, a bit more complex than your average coming-of-age story, but a sweet one nevertheless. Although we don't know how much of the original novel was altered, its place in the world of Type Moon is well apparent. Its once imaginary roots can now be seen spreading through every piece of this fictional universe, giving new meaning to what would be future appearances of its cast. It's a piece crafted with abundant love from every aspect of its production. The writing, soundtrack, the thousands of character sprites and backgrounds all animated fluidly. Everything about it is as close to perfect as it can get. In my opinion anyway. With all of this in a single package, I don't think it's too far off to say that this is debatably one of the best works Type Moon has released. I know that as of this moment, it has become my favorite. On top of that, it's the first Type Moon visual novel to ever be officially translated, meaning it's the perfect gateway into this world. Really, the only complaint that comes to mind is bits of the translation that weirdly didn't put the H in names that have the shi sound, like Shizuki and Yamashiro. Not to mention quite a bit of typos that create misspellings or the wrong word altogether. It does become a small distraction in the more serious moments, and does lead to skepticism when it comes to the overarching translation quality, but overall is easy to overlook for the most part. Once I finished it, that oh so beautiful void I become accustomed to time and time again had returned. It's been a while since I last read a Nasu story in full, barring Fate Grand Order stuff. And this story, along with Lost Belt 6 for Fate Grand Order, reminded me why I love Tight Moon with all my heart. I didn't even realize how much I actually cared for these characters until reaching the final quarter. It just struck me that it was ending, and with it, a longing for more after this experience. And while there is a short story that takes place after the main game, reading it so soon only made that void worse. I guess the only thing I and many others can do now is wait patiently for those sequels mentioned years ago. There was a recent interview with Nasu, and it seems that they are still on the table, despite still looking like years away. From the unorthodox yet oddly realistic characters, themes of humanity, and of course the unmatched production, Witch on the Holy Night has easily become one of my favorite stories. Whether you are a Tight Moon fan or not, I can give no better recommendation. And with that, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching.